Hey, today I have Gretchen Wegner online, and she's an academic coach. So, Gretchen, what exactly is an academic coach?
It's this, I want to say new and upcoming field, but it's really been around for over 5 years now, where people are realizing more and more and more that they need support, not necessarily around the tutoring aspects of school, but around time management and organization and learning how to study. And so an academic coach helps students build those kinds of skills so that they can be successful in all of their classrooms. I often like to compare it, I brought up tutoring just a second ago, and where a tutor is someone who helps you understand a math problem or explains World War II to you if you don't really get it. And as an academic coach, I am super interested when a student comes to me about, why aren't you learning it in the classroom in the first place? Like, is your teacher teaching in a different teaching style for you, or are your notes disorganized? So rather than explain the concept to them, we look at their process and what might be going wrong. I don't like the word wrong, but what can be improved in their process to help them learn.
So, you're saying that it's not just them not knowing the subject, it's actually other things that people can do so that they can help learn better overall? I never knew that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, usually, I mean, I know it's strange, like many kids have some issues with, let's just say, note-taking or organizing, and what they think is a problem with the subject area. They think they can't understand the subject area. It's actually that if they could organize the information a little differently on their note-taking page, or if they would actually go back to the textbook. So many kids think they need a tutor when actually they just need to learn how the textbook is organized and learn how to use the textbook as a reference.
Wow, that's really amazing because I know a lot of students, especially, a lot of parents reach out to me and they tell me, my kid has a 2.5 GPA or a 2.0. I had a couple parents even have like a 1.0. So maybe it really is the academic tutor that they need and not something for all the subjects. Might just be something that their kid's doing wrong with organization. Wow, I never knew that. So thanks for being on here today, Gretchen, telling us all about it. Doesn't have to just be a tutor. Your child doesn't have to be tutored in every subject. Maybe it's just their organization. So how did you get into academic tutoring?
I was a teacher, a middle school and a high school teacher for a while, and I was angry all the time, though. I think I'm a gifted teacher who just didn't really like working with groups of students and making them do things they don't want to do. And as a teacher, I was teaching world history, and I like world history a lot, but what I really loved is the brain, what's happening up here when people are learning and helping kids understand themselves as learners. And there was never any time for that because we were always needing to rush ahead with what's the next chapter we need to do. So one summer I decided I was not going to go back to the school where I'd been teaching, and I applied for a bunch of tutoring jobs, speaking of the difference of tutoring versus academic coaching. And the one I ended up getting was an academic coaching position, and I had no idea what it was, and I quickly fell in love with the work because I got to be one-on-one with kids. I got to teach them about their brains, and we got to look at what makes you tick, what's your learning style, what do you love to do, and how can we help your schoolwork reflect what you love. And I'm just absolutely in love with my work now.
That sounds awesome. So who can benefit from an academic coach? Is it just the students that might be failing a subject, or is it someone who has maybe a B average, a 3.0, and maybe would need to, who actually can you help?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Certainly, most of my clients are young people and older people, sometimes with some sort of diagnosed learning difference. ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, uh, those kinds of folks often struggle with organization and time management, and then also learning how to learn within their specific learning difference. However, there is also the kind of student, like the uber perfectionist, the one who wants to get everything right all the time and is feeling like they are losing their life to school and studying. That student can really benefit from academic coaching, because often it's like dog paddling. You know how it's like they take so much energy just to keep your head above water, and with just a little thought about their study processes, kids can learn to work smarter rather than harder and actually save time. So sometimes for these students, studying takes less time, or even if it's less, or even if it takes more time, it's more fun time, so it doesn't feel so grueling. So those are the two main kinds of students. Although, you know, there is also the third student who has done really well in high school with very minimal studying, and then gets to college and just like totally tanks, because suddenly they need to actually, they have all this open-ended time, they need to know how to manage their time, and they just have never learned how to study. And so that kind of student often just needs a few tips, and then they're off and running. So they you know, many of my clients I see on a weekly basis through the semester, but this kind of student I'm talking about now sometimes just needs 4 or 5 sessions to be sent in the right direction with their study skills, and then they do fine.
Okay. I just want to make it really clear exactly what ages do you work with? You talked about older students, younger students. Where does that all fall in? How early should people start looking for academic coaches? How late? Is it too late to ever start looking for an academic coach?
Well, it's never too late. And in fact, I'm discovering in my own work that I love working with people who are slightly older, maybe 18, 19, 20, or in some cases I have some graduate students in their late 20s who find themselves really struggling, but they have a clear vision of why school is important to them. And so because they know why school is important, they are ready to learn the skills that they just weren't ready when they were younger, when school was just like this boring thing they were being forced to do. So in my own work, I am noticing myself moving more and more to this older young adult crowd. However, it's never too early or too late for academic coaching. Some of my colleagues do work with elementary school students. I will say that many young people start needing a coach at around age 12, because that's when there's a big shift and there's a big growth spurt in the brain. And if a student is going to have a learning difference come out, it's around age 12 that happens. And that's also when we change the way we teach, because kids go from sort of the safe nurturing of elementary school into middle school, where they have to run around to 6 different classes and organize in 6 different ways according to what their teacher wants. So many kids do start in middle school.
Gretchen, would you mind giving us I usually learn best through an example. Could you give an example of how you actually helped some of the people that you've helped? Maybe you can break it down so that we can really see, and I can really see, how you can help an elementary school student compared to someone who's in high school, compared to maybe a graduate student or someone transitioning. So I can get a better sense of, exactly what you're talking about and what you do, how you can help people.
Yeah, well, I won't talk about elementary school because that is not my expertise. I would, if someone came to me with a question about a younger kiddo, I would refer them to one of my amazing colleagues. But yeah, let me tell you about, I'll tell you about a middle school, a high school, and then an older student. I have a young woman named, we'll call her Frankie. She's funky like that name, Frankie, and she came to me in 6th grade. And she had really struggled in elementary school. The transition to middle school was happening. Her parents wanted her to feel supported, So she started coming to see me weekly, and the very first thing we did is we just created an organization system. She got a file box to keep at home, and we put her binder in a particular order. I didn't want her to have 10 binders. I just wanted her to have one binder. And so we got that going on first. We made sure that she's actually filling out her planner, which is a skill that kiddos need to learn. And then she would come back every week, and the first thing we would do for the first 10 minutes of our session is make sure she didn't have any loose papers, all those crumpled up papers in the bottom of the backpack. Make sure those are put away, uncrumpled and put away, and make sure her planner's filled out. And then we would start looking at what her assignments are for the week. If there are any big projects, we would make a project plan. We would get out a piece of paper and write down step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 to make it really clear the order she needed to work. And we would just work with whatever teachers were assigning her for the whole semester. So when kids are younger, it really is a process of holding their hands and practicing the organization, time management, and study skills with them so that they eventually can be more independent. That's the younger student. Do you have any questions about that before I move on to the older ones?
I actually think that was really clear. I didn't know so much organization went involved with, just a learning skill. And that it makes so much sense because if you're disorganized, then you're probably missing assignment deadlines. You don't know what's coming up. You don't know what you have to do. You lost the paper. A lot of people say they forgot a homework assignment at home even though they did it. So that's, those are points that you lose over something that you didn't have to lose it over. So I think that is something very important that I never really hear too many people touch on. Everyone just says, you need a tutor, you need a tutor. But if it's something about your overall habits and organizational skills, then maybe that's not a tutor. Maybe you need someone that's an academic coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's usually a combination. Like if a kid is still struggling after we've gotten them all organized, then absolutely I refer them to a tutor. Because then it means that subject area is difficult for them. But there are so many things we can put in place before they reach out to a tutor. And my whole interest is making sure that kids know how to be lifelong learners. So for a high school student, for example, I might work the way I described with the 6th grader, except we'd speed it up a little bit. They would be encouraged to be independent in practicing that skill more quickly. And then we do a lot more work on studying for tests. So, if a teacher hands out the study guide for a student, like how do we figure out what you should do first, second, and third over how many days? Are you going to do flashcards? How are you going to quiz yourself in a different way? Do you need to go back and rewrite your notes? We work on make a very strategic and specific study plan. And then I often check in with the student via text message to find out how they're going on executing their study plan. And then once a student has worked with me long enough to know what the different studying menu items are, then I encourage them to make their own study plans on their own time and run those by me so that they are learning how to troubleshoot any learning situation and deal effectively with it by themselves.
How long are you working with these students?
That's a great question. It really depends. The younger ones and the older students who have pretty severe learning differences often stay with me for 3 or 4 years, and it takes that long sometimes, especially for students with ADHD, to really build and sustain habits. So one client started off with me her junior year in high school, and I stayed with her for most of her college career. She's about to be a senior now, and actually it's great. I haven't heard from her this summer, so I don't know if I'm going to be working with her next year, and I actually hope not. I've been trying to shoo her out of the nest to say, you're ready now. But the clients who are absolutely ready for it, like the older ones that I mentioned, they usually don't stay with me for longer than 6 months to a year, and usually we taper off. Like we'll start in weekly sessions, and then we'll move to half-hour sessions, and then we'll move to 15-minute check-ins to help them build their independence, and they're often running really quickly because they know they need it and they want it so badly.
So what are some stuff that you do with the older students? We already talked about the middle school and the high school. What about the graduate students or students in college as well?
I have a grad student right now who I absolutely adore working with. And you know what? She needs exactly what everyone else needs. It's no different. So we just talked about how she's going to organize her things, her supplies for the next school year, and she's like, oh, that sounds so much better, than what she had been doing. We talked about how to organize her study space now, and she has a job, and she lives with her boyfriend, so she has a more complex life than a student does. Like a college student is just a college student usually. So with grad students, it's helping them manage the complexity of their whole lives and how to fit school into that. But then it's also, yeah, how to organize your space. I mean, I taught her how to read a textbook, because the truth is, in our school systems, we don't teach these things. Teachers make decisions and tell kids what to do, but they rarely actually teach kids the mechanisms, the learning mechanisms that are happening underneath the choices that the teachers have made. So I find that I'm teaching the very same skills to the older crowd, and they love it. They're so grateful. They're like, oh my God, why couldn't I have known this? It would have saved me so many headaches.
Yes, I think that's so right. We go through school for so long doing the same thing, and sometimes we don't know what we're doing wrong because everyone says it's one thing when it might not actually be that one particular thing. Wow. So, Gretchen, that's really great. I'm glad that you're helping people in that way. Besides working with private clients, do you work in any other ways or have anything else exciting coming up?
Well, I'm starting to do more group programs because, as you can imagine, one-on-one work for an entire school year for multiple years can be a really big investment for families. Um, it's at least cheaper than private school to do that. So often having an academic coach is a way that families of students who go to public schools can feel like they're kind of accelerating the value that they're getting at school. But it's still a hefty investment. So I'm working. I haven't fully, like in 2 weeks I'll have more information for your listeners if they want more information about a group program called Your Best Semester Ever that I am going to be launching in for this school year for the fall. And that's designed to be a way for people to have access to me and to get these weekly teachings about how to learn without having to fork out the big bucks that you have to for one-on-one coaching. So that's coming up. I have a podcast called The College Prep Podcast that I'm doing with a colleague of mine, Megan Dorsey. So that will be coming out in September as well. And I'm looking to have more free resources on my YouTube channel as well. So I highly encourage people to sign up for my newsletter because that's how you can get announcements about all of these new things that I'm offering. And my website is my name, GretchenWegner.com. And my last name is spelled Wegner. So come on over there and give me your email to sign up for my newsletter.
Can you just spell out your whole thing just for anyone who might be a little bit? I know sometimes I'm typing stuff in and I don't want to type in the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's great. So it's GretchenWegner.
.com. Well, thank you so much, Gretchen. Anything else that you want to tell people or you want people to really take away from what you have to say?
I think I'm guessing that many people listening to us are actually parents and not students. So I think I would want to say to parents that you don't need to freak out. Your kid is going to turn out great. They will get into the perfect college for them. There's a college for everyone, and I know in the work that you do, Shanice, there's probably also a scholarship for everyone too if you know how to look for it. But really, it's important for parents to manage their own anxiety, because a lot of the struggles I see kids having is because they're dealing with their own anxiety plus their parents' anxiety about their learning situation, and it just makes it harder. So if everyone can take a deep breath and realize that the situation's not as dire as they think it is, and everything will be fine, I think that helps quite a bit.
Well, thank you so much, Gretchen, for sharing all of your knowledge with us. Thanks for telling us about academic coaching. Once again, you're really enlightening me because I never knew an academic coach existed. No one ever talked about making sure that I was organized or that I listed out what assignments were due, but I can tell those are going to be some very helpful tips, not just in high school when you're shifting off to college, and also prioritizing your whole life. It's a lifelong skill. So thanks so much, Gretchen, for sharing that with us. Once again, Gretchen, tell them again how they can connect with you.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a little tear coming. So my website is gretchenwegner.com, and my email, if actually you want to email me directly, is gretchen@gretchenwegner.com.
Thanks so much. This has been amazing. So thanks for sharing your information.
Nice to chat with you, Shanice. Take care.
You too.